Hi and welcome back. Today we will be doing a buttonhole with a KENMORE 3A5 series sewing machine. So let's get started. If you look over here, I have some of the supplies that I'll be using. This is my scrap fabric that I will be using to create the button. We also have a pair of scissors, a button, seam gauge, chalk. We have our seam ripper, and the hammer and the awl are actually optional, but since I had them on hand, I wanted to show you how to use those. So the first thing we need to do is decide how large we want our buttonhole to be. So my button here, I'm going to measure it, and it measures at 6/8 of an inch. So I will be making a 6/8 of an inch button hole. So I take my chalk, and I'm going to measure 6/8. So I'm just going to put a little line there and a line there. So that's about 6/8. Now our buttonhole is going to go this way. Okay, so I just put that on there for you all so that you can see that. I have my buttonhole foot on here, and so this is what it looks like. It can go up and down freely, as well as it has an arrow here with some increments, and these increments are 1/8 of an inch apart. So when you're doing buttons, you can use that. Now the way that you make sure that you put it on correctly is you'll see that there are these two, let's call them paws or feet or something. You want to make sure that the paws are facing you when you put it on the sewing machine. So let's place this back on the machine. Okay, next thing you need to do is take your top thread, and you're going to insert the top thread through the buttonhole foot like that, and make sure that it's going to the back because the thread always goes towards the back. Now the next thing here, this is the buttonhole stitch. So we're going to have to turn our foot to J1, and when you do a buttonhole, there are 4 different stitches. There's a left stitch, a bottom stitch, a right, and a top stitch. So that's what we use. Now as far as length and width, we do have to change those because this is not your average stitch. So the length will be between 0 and 1 because that's blue and that stands for the buttonhole. So I'm gonna do between 0 and 1. And as far as my width, it can be between 3 and 6.5, depending on how wide I want my buttonhole. But I'm going to go ahead and do about 3.5, maybe 4. I'll probably do 4. So our settings on our sewing machine are ready. I have black thread in the top as well as in the bobbin, and so I'm ready to start. So I'm going to take my fabric here, and I'm going to place it under the presser foot. Let me cut the machine on. And I'm going to place my top line where the arrow is on the foot. All right, and I placed the presser foot down. And so now, I'm going to take my needle and place it into the fabric right on the top line that I made with my chalk. And now I'm just going to sew from where my needle is all the way to the bottom. Now you should be able to count 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you know, on your increments because it's 6/8, but we're just gonna go ahead and do it. When I get to the end, I want to make sure that my needle is on the left side and not on the right side. So my needle is on the left. Now I'm not going to pierce the fabric. I'm just going to make sure that it's on the left side of the stitch, and then I'm going to turn my wheel, and we're going to do a number 2 stitch. Now I'm going to do about 6 stitches going for the number 2 stitch. I'm going to do about 6, so I'm just going to count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to make sure that I leave my needle on the right side of the stitch, but the needle is not in the fabric, it's just on the right side of the stitch. And then I'm going to turn it to number 3, and the stitch is actually going to go backwards. So we're just going to allow the sewing machine to do its thing. Now make sure that your needle is on the right side of the stitch, and then you're going to turn it to 4, and you're going to finish it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and the last but not least, sometimes people do an extra stitch and they turn it to number 1 again, and then they do like a length 0, and they do like maybe 2 stitches, 1, 2, just so that it'll stay in place. So I will lift my needle out of the fabric. I'm going to lift up my presser foot and pull the fabric out, and then I'm going to cut it. So not bad at all. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut. Okay, so I'm going to cut the thread right at the stitch on the front as well as on the back. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over. Now, last but not least, you can do 2 ways in order to open up the buttonhole. You can use your seam ripper, and you can take it and you just place your seam ripper into the buttonhole and just pull it. But I've done that and it's been unsuccessful, and sometimes I cut outside of the buttonhole, so sometimes it ruins it. However, this is a great tool to use, and I like this tool because it's more precise. So I'm just gonna take, this is like my iPhone box, and I'm gonna put that on the bottom there, and then I'm going to place my awl right in the center of the button hole. Let's do it like that. I believe that's in the center. And then I'm just gonna take the hammer and whack it. All right. So now we have a beautiful buttonhole. Last thing you wanna do is make sure that your button fits through the buttonhole, which it does, and there you go. All right, thank you for watching this tutorial.